Have you ever been told that you are too nice to be a leader or to be an effective leader? This can be quite common, but there's a big difference between being just nice or being kind, respectful, empathetic, understanding, and supportive. So if you are all of these things, then you can still, or even more so, be an effective leader. However, sometimes it can get in our way if we are too concerned about what other people might think, or if we are too concerned about upsetting other people. And so we can get in our own way of being taken serious or protecting our boundaries or bringing up topics that are important or difficult to discuss. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 common risks that can happen when you are too nice and how it can get in your way and what you can do about this. Risk number 1 is not protecting your own boundaries. When we talk about boundaries, it can concern boundaries around your time, your physical space, your values, your emotional and mental well-being, and also your things or your possessions, but also financial boundaries, for example. And often, if we are very concerned about what other people might think or that we don't want to upset them, then we don't really stick and hold our boundaries or protect them. And then people will get used to overstepping this boundary. And so it's up to you to understand and identify your boundaries and then start to communicate and hold a bit more firm on these boundaries. So here's what you can do. Think about which areas of your boundaries are most important to you, or where you feel like people are constantly overstepping your boundaries. Is it with regards to your physical space? Is it with regards to your emotional well-being, your time, or also with regards to your values? And then start to define your boundaries for yourself. What are specific boundaries that you want to set and that you want to emphasize in a working environment? And then start to think about who are the key people that you need to communicate this with and that you need to hold this boundary a bit more firmly going forward. When we want to protect our time boundaries, let's say you want to have a hard stop of your workday at the end of the day, you can say something like, my evenings are reserved for my family or reserved for my exercise and my mental well-being, so I will be answering your emails tomorrow morning first thing. When it's around your physical space, you can either move away or you can say, I don't feel comfortable sitting this close together. Or if it's something around your emotional or mental well-being, you can say, I don't feel comfortable discussing this right now. You can start practicing small and then reinforce your boundaries with everyone around you. And if somebody still oversteps your boundary, just gently remind them that this is a boundary that you firmly hold. It might take a little bit of practice and you might feel a bit scared at first, but start with your most important boundary that costs you the most energy if people overstep it, and then go from there. Risk number 2 is that you avoid conflict and don't stand up for what you believe in. So if we are worried about what other people might think or that we might upset other people, then we actually will hold back on our opinions and thoughts. We might not bring up topics that are important to us or other people around us. We might not bring up critical issues, or for example, as a leader, we might avoid bringing up negative or constructive feedback with someone. So we're avoiding difficult conversations, but the result or the outcome of this could be that we lose a lot of emotional energy, that there's bigger conflicts that come out of it. The rest of the team might be upset if we don't address an issue with someone. And so overall, you want to make sure that you practice bringing up difficult things and leading difficult conversations or voicing your opinions. So here also start to reflect on the 1 to 3 things that you think are important for you to mention or say or talk to someone about it. What are conflicts that have been brewing for a while? Is there an employee that you need to talk to because they are showing toxic behavior or they are underperforming? What are the 1 or 2 or 3 key issues that you currently have where you feel like you really want to start to bring up the topic and you really want to start having conversations with people about? There is a video I link up here that will talk you through how to engage and start these difficult conversations. Risk number 3 is that you're not being listened to or not taken seriously. So if we don't practice to confidently share our opinion and speak up, people will get used to talking over us, or they won't even learn that we have great ideas to share and contribute. So of course the risk here is that your brilliant ideas and your important views are not being heard and not being taken seriously. So this can get in your way of becoming an effective leader, of course, but also as an individual contributor, because we all have amazing things to share. We all have really great ideas that need to be heard. So what you can do is practice speaking up in meetings. If you are being interrupted, just state your facts again. Just go back to, as I said, XYZ. You can also team up with someone that you will save with that are also in the same meeting with you, and you can start to kind of become your buddies. So whenever one of you is getting interrupted, the other one can bring it back to that point. If you want to get more comfortable in stating opinions, bringing up points, I recommend that you start to practice it out loud before a meeting, because by practicing saying it out loud, we can get more confident in actually saying the words. And so when the time comes in the meeting, it will feel much easier to bring our point across. So practicing by yourself out loud or even in front of someone that you trust can be really helpful when you just get started on speaking up in meetings and wanting to be heard. If there is an issue with someone that constantly interrupts you, go back to the point of having difficult conversations and bring it up with this person specifically on a one-on-one basis. Risk number 4 is that you do not show up as your authentic self. And this often happens because we want everyone to like us, especially as a new or emerging leader. We might feel like we need to be liked by everyone. We don't want to upset anyone, and we want to have good relationships. But the problem is when you don't show up as your authentic self, that firstly, wearing a mask is really exhausting. If you have to pretend to be someone else, to think something else, and to have different values, then this will cost you a lot of energy to build that up and keep this up every day. Secondly, if you don't show up as your authentic self, you're also not going to be an effective leader, because you are actually not going to do what is needed, what is required of this role. And thirdly, people will see through your mask. People will start to see that you are not being real, and that will affect the trust and your relationships. So by trying to fit in and being liked by everyone, you actually do have the risk that people will see through the facade and actually then not trust you, because you're not showing the real you, and you might be acting differently in front of different people. So what you can do here is to become really clear and self-aware about who you are and who you want to be as a leader. Understand what your values are and how these values translate into your behaviors. So if one of your values is courage, then think about how you can show courage in your everyday actions. What are the small things that you can do day in, day out to show that you are courageous and that courage is one of your key values? Secondly, you can start to reflect on your strength. What is it that you bring? What are your natural ways of thinking and interacting with people that are unique to yourself and are your real superpowers? Once we start to identify our strength, it will feel much easier to stop and hiding the things that we don't feel as comfortable about. We can show our weaknesses and talk about our weaknesses when we know all of our strength and how they contribute to our success. And risk number 5 is that you struggle to say no. And this is closely related to your boundaries around your time. Because if we struggle to say no because we don't want to upset someone, or because we do want to do a good job, so we say yes to everything, we're actually doing a disservice to ourselves, because we're actually overloading ourselves with too much work. People will get used to it, and then also the risk is that they will take advantage of you and the work that you do. This could also mean that you do lots of overtime at work, and you are the one that needs to protect your boundaries when it comes to time and say no. Nobody will do this for you. You want to practice to say no for several reasons. To protect your own time. Maybe the request is not aligned with your goals or the organizational goals, or maybe you are not the best skilled person for this job. There are many reasons why you might want to say no, and it's important that you do so when it aligns with what's best for you and what lets you be an effective contributor or leader. To practice saying no, refer back to your boundaries and start to understand what's really important for you and where you do want to start to push back, and then start to prepare your statements, practice them out loud, and you can say things like this: thanks for your request, but that's not something I can fit into my schedule right now. Thank you so much. This sounds really interesting. However, it does not align with my priorities at this stage. Or if somebody comes to you because they would love your advice and they would love to pick your brain, and it doesn't fit into your workday right now because you still have lots of things to get through, you can say, hey, I would really love to support you with this and be there for you, but I can't do it today because I have a really urgent deadline. However, let's grab coffee tomorrow morning, and then I would love to listen and hear and provide my support. You are in charge of your own time and of your boundaries. So these were the 5 risks. I encourage you to start to reflect on if there are any of these 5 risks that ring true for you. What are the areas that you need to start to practice to not be nice? You can say no, you can state your boundaries, still by being kind, respectful, and empathetic. Saying no, protecting your boundaries, sharing feedback, or having difficult conversations does not mean that you are unkind. It's actually the opposite. The clearer you communicate with other people, the kinder it is, because they get to see where your boundaries lie and how they can best interact with you. I know this is not easy, so start small, but I know you will get there. You are in charge of your boundaries, and you can still be an amazing, kind, empathetic leader and individual contributor that still protects their own boundaries. And if you like this video, then you might want to watch this one next, where I talk about how you can lead effectively as an introvert and how you can turn your strength as an introvert into your leadership superpowers.